Hey folks, how's it going? It's R&D Diesel here today, and we're going to be working on my 97 Ford F350, and we're replacing the front headlights today on the truck. Now this should be pretty much the same process for any 1992 to 1997 Ford pickup truck. Stay tuned. So to get things started, we're going to go ahead and remove the grille. Now there are 4 screws up top, and don't forget there's another screw right below the Ford symbol right here. Once those 5 screws are removed, we can just pull the grille right out. Now next up, we're going to go ahead and remove 2 screws up top on each of the headlight chrome panels. And there are also 2 more bolts that hold on the chrome panel from behind. Now these I found to be 11 millimeters. I'm using 11 millimeter deep well socket on a 1/4 inch drive. And one of mine was also a 10 millimeter, so that just be mindful that someone might have swapped the bolts at one time. So once you unscrew it, just be really careful and drop it, but the nuts just come right out. And I'll move a little bit further over and I'll show you where the other one is. Again, using the 11 millimeter deep well socket for this. Now these can be a little bit tricky, so just take your time, be patient with it, and make sure you don't drop the nut. It's kind of hard to fish it out from the engine bay at this point. After we remove those, the chrome panel just comes right out. Now the lights themselves just unscrew counterclockwise, and they come up pretty easy. So the headlights themselves are held on with these clips. You can see one right there, and there's another one behind this big plastic structure as well. And unfortunately, these clips that hold on the headlights are extremely hard to get to. You see there's one right there. It's way back in there. So I ended up coming up with resulting down to the fact that we need to pull out this big plastic trim piece that holds on the headlights. There's a total of 10 screws. There's 5 on either side. There's one right here, and there are 2 way on the outside by the fender, one down below and one up top. And then there's also 2 screws that hold the plastic structure onto these metal support brackets, one right here and another one a little bit higher up as well. Again, there are 5 on either side, total of 10. Once you get those removed, the whole structure just comes out loose. But we also need to make sure that the headlights themselves are removed. So we'll go in from the back side. Pulling out the lights themselves is pretty easy. There's this black retainer that just unscrews. You'll also just take out unclip the wiring harness. And then the bulbs themselves just kind of pull right out. And whenever you pull out these bulbs, make sure you don't touch the bulb itself, because any oils and contaminants get on there can actually reduce the life of the bulb. Once that's done, we can just kind of finagle the plastic structure out, and we'll have a lot better access to the headlights. Now we got a much better idea of what those clips are, so I'm just using a couple of screwdrivers right here to pull out these metal clips. Now it takes a little bit of work, and unfortunately a lot of times these will break whenever you pull them off, but I ordered a set of 6 that is enough for both headlights anyways, and it's only like $5, so it's pretty cheap enough. Some of them, if you're really careful, you can save them, but you would have them as backup. Well, there's 3 of those clips that hold on either headlight. Once you get them out, the whole thing just kind of works its way out pretty easy. And there you go, headlights removed. Now next up, to install the new headlight, it's pretty much just a reverse of pulling the old one out. Now it can be a little bit tricky getting the clips on there, especially if you get cheapo aftermarket ones like I did. The tolerances aren't quite as good as the OEM ones, and it just takes a little bit of work, but ultimately you can get them in the holes. The clips themselves, you just kind of push the retainers back and then you put the clip in. And again, you can use a flat blade screwdriver to make sure those metal tabs actually fit into the plastic grooves that you see there. And that'll help make sure that they don't fall out. Now after that, putting everything back together is pretty much the same as the way you pulled it apart, but an opposite. Now you can see right here that the headlight itself is not quite perfectly lined up. It's a little bit receded from that chrome panel itself, and what you can do is ideally you would turn the headlights on and you would see where the beam is pointing, but there's actually an adjuster behind there that you can use to adjust where the headlight sits. Now, using a 5/32 socket, you can adjust it and just kind of move it in or out by tightening or loosening that bolt right there, and it'll adjust the position of the headlights. Now, it was daylight whenever I did this, so I couldn't really see where the beam was pointing, but I just got it kind of close enough to how the old one sat, and that worked pretty well for me.
Okay, well, now that we got the headlights all installed, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that they are pointed in the right place. So I've got my garage door set up right here, and you can see the second line up here is actually set up to where it is 4 feet above the ground. And then my truck is about 25 feet away from the garage door. So at about 25 feet away, my headlights should, on the low beam, should be about even with that 4 foot line there. So what we're going to do is see where it's at, and then we'll adjust from there. It's actually pretty simple. I've got my 5/32 wrench right here, and you can see it actually just goes right here on these little adjusters, and you'll turn them one way to move them up, and turn them the other way, of course, to move them down, and kind of trial and error to figure out which way is the right way to go. Okay, so right now I've got the engine running to make sure I don't drain the batteries, and I'm tightening the right-hand side. I've got the hood open right now, and we're just going to keep tightening this thing up until it gets to be right where that level is. Okay, now we're over on the passenger side. Let's take a look at this one. Again, I'm tightening this to raise it up. And that should do it. Well, that's how you adjust your headlights on the truck. Now also, if you need to adjust the way they're pointing, whether they're closer together or further apart, earlier in the video I showed you those adjusters that I used to make sure the headlights were flush with the outside and the rest of it. You'll need to disassemble the truck or the front end in order to access those adjusters, from what I can tell. So it's a little bit of pain. So I just kind of got it close, and it looks like it'll work for me. Well, hey guys, that does it for this video here today on how to replace the headlights on your Ford truck. Be sure to click that like button. If you have any questions, be sure to leave that in the comment box down below. In the meantime, happy trucking.